Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Veena Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava ki, Shri Radha Vrindaban Chandra ki, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. So welcome everyone to the land of Krishna. Anyone here is a guest visiting? Any guests visiting Vrindaban for the first time perhaps? No guests, okay. Oh, some guests back over there. So, dear devotees, respected Vaishnavas, honored leaders, and any guests and visitors who may be with us this morning, welcome. We're very happy that you're here. I want to thank His Grace Jai Krishna Prabhu, our community president, for kindly inviting me to read this Bhagavatam with you this morning. I want to thank His Grace Anukampa Prabhu, Haribo, who has been leading us in this leadership training seminar. And I want to thank Her Grace Malati Prabhu, Hare Krishna, being such a guiding light, a real inspiration for us in so many ways. And it's a real honor to be with you anytime. Thank you. So we're going to read Srimad Bhagavatam. Today's verses are from the 3rd canto, chapter 30, verses 30 and 31. And I'd like to center our discussion around this theme of Anukampa leadership. For those who may be newer to this tradition or visiting Vrindaban, the Bhagavatam is a sacred text that speaks very deeply about the human condition, about responsibility, about the soul, and how spiritual life should transform not just the way we think internally, but how we relate to others. These are grave verses. These are what we call heavy verses. So this is a conversation between Lord Kapila Dev and Mother Devahuti. So Lord Kapila is not speaking casually. He is speaking with the sense of urgency. He's describing the fate of one who maintains himself and others through harmful, sinful means, and then must personally bear the consequence. At first glance, we may think these verses are mainly about grossly sinful materialists. People commit major wrongdoings to maintain their families. But if we hear carefully, especially those of us who are in positions of responsibility, these verses come closer to home. Because even if we do not envision ourselves committing the grave sins that are described in this section, these verses still force us to confront a very searching question. In the name of serving a cause, in the name of leading others, or maintaining something important, are we truly caring for people? And for ISKCON leaders, or leaders of any level, but for ISKCON leaders in particular, are we maintaining Krishna's mission while truly caring for Krishna's people? That's the heart of today's discussion. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Evam kutumbam bibrana. Udaram bhara eva va. Visrijyeho bhayam pretya. Bhungte tad phalamidrisham. Evam kutumbam bibrana. Udaram bhara eva va. Vrisrijyeho bhayam pretya. Bhungte tat phalamidrisham.
Evam kutumbam bibrana.
Evam kutumbam bibrana.
Udaram bhara eva va.
Udaram bhara eva va.
Visrijyeho bhayam pretya.
Visrijyeho bhayam pretya.
Bhukte tat phalamidrisham.
Bhungte tat phalamidrisham.
Evam kutumbam bibrana.
Evam kutumbam bibrana.
Udaram bhara eva va.
Udaram bhara eva va.
Visrijyeho bhayam pretya. Bhungte tat phalamidrisham.
Bhungte tat phalamidrisham. Evam kutumbam bibrana. Udaram bhara eva va. Visrijyeho bhayam pretya. Bhungte tat phalamidrisham.
Evam kutumbam bibrana.
Evam kutumbam bibrana.
Udaram bhara eva va.
Udarambara eva va.
Visrujyeho bhayam pretya.
Visrijyeho bhayam pretya.
Bhunte tat phalamidrisham.
Bhunte tat phalamidrisham.
Evam kutumbam viprana.
Evam kutumbam viprana.
Udarambara eva va.
Udarambara eva va.
Visrijyo bhayam pretya.
Visrijyeho bhayam pretya.
Bhunte tat phalamidrisham.
Bhunte tat phalamidrisham.
एवं कुटुम्बं बिभ्राणा
Evam kutumbam viprana.
उदरम्बर एव वा
Udarambara eva va.
विसृज्येहो भयं प्रेत्य
Visrijyeho bhayam pretya.
ते तत्फलमिदृशम्
Bhunte tat phalamidrisham.
एवं कुटुम्बं बिभ्राणा
Evam kutumbam viprana.
उदरम्बर एव वा
Udarambara eva va.
विसृज्येहो भयं प्रेत्य
Visrijyeho bhayam pretya.
ते तत्फलमिदृशम्
Bhunte tat phalamidrisham. Okay, I will read the translation and then we'll also read the next verse. After leaving this body, a man who maintained himself and his family members by sinful activities suffers a hellish life, and his relatives suffer also. Verse 31, Eka prapadyate tvantam hitvedam svakalevaram kushaletara patheyo bhutadrohena yadbritam. He goes alone to the darkest regions of hell after quitting the present body. And the money he acquired by envying other living entities is the passage money with which he leaves the world. Passage money. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshcharine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So even if someone is here who's just visiting and does not share every theological assumption of this text, I think we can all feel the moral force of what's being said here. If we maintain our families, our lives, our organizations, our ambitions by harming others, there is consequence. Outward success does not erase inner accountability. So I've summarized the purports here. I want to bring out some of the essential points from Prabhupada's purports here. Srila Prabhupada says that one of the great mistakes of modern civilization is that people do not believe in the next life. But whether one believes it or not, the next life is there. Lower species are not held responsible in the same way because they act according to their nature. But in developed human life, the responsibility is real. One cannot live irresponsibly and then think there's going to be no consequence. Then Prabhupada, in the second purport, makes a very sober point. If a person acquires wealth unfairly and uses it to maintain himself, his family, many others may enjoy that money, like his family and so on. But the principal offender especially bears a reaction. The money stays there, the reaction goes with him. See? And then Prabhupada gives a redemptive direction. He says, whatever one has should be used for Sat. Krishna. Sat means the truth. The true thing. Like we have this word satsang. It's a true association. It's eternal. So Sat refers to Krishna, the eternal truth. So whatever we have, whatever resources we have to use for Sat, for Krishna, Supreme Lord. One cannot keep one's possessions forever. Either we leave the money, or we're still alive but the money leaves us. That also happens. Therefore, the best use of what we have is to engage it in higher service. The language of karma, I think for most of you, even those of you visiting, the language of karma, the next life, may be familiar, more or less. But even at a basic ethical level, the point is very powerful, even if you don't believe in the next life. The point is very important. Human life carries moral responsibility, and leadership carries much more of it. Prabhupada gave an example. What did he say? Very high-level leaders in the movement. He compares them to who? Do you remember them? Yamaraj, that's right. He says you all are big leaders in the movement, GBCs especially, but any leader. It's like you're like Yamaraj in one sense. But then you're held much more accountable. That means if an ordinary devotee lies something to manipulate something small, it's bad, but it's not as bad as when someone in position does that. Someone in authority does that. It magnifies it many, many fold. There's a responsibility. It's a very heavy weight that comes with leadership. So the warnings here are multiplied. Like when you're in a construction zone, the fine is double, right? Speeding fines are doubled in construction zone. It's more dangerous. The role of being a leader is heavy. It's important. To hear these verses properly, we should remember the larger chapter context. What is Lord Kapila saying? He's describing the entanglement. This Lord Kapila Dev with his mother, and he's talking about the entanglement of the conditioned soul. From that false sense of maintainership comes sometimes a fear. If I think everything depends on me, then I become anxious. If I become anxious, I start feeling pressure. If I feel pressure, I begin rationalizing compromise. And if compromise becomes habitual, then the karma accumulates rapidly. So Kapila Dev is exposing not just obvious sin, but the psychology of entanglement. Now in our context as leaders, the attachment may not only be my home, my family, my livelihood. It may become my temple, my project, my standards, my systems, my ministry, my version of order. And even if someone who's not part of ISKCON, the pattern is recognizable, right? My company, my role, my family image, my success, my institution, my tribe, my plans. And then, because we feel responsible, we may begin justifying behavior that does not reflect deep care. And that's where today's theme becomes so important. Anukampa leadership. This is a central question. Are we maintaining the mission with the right heart? For us in ISKCON, that means, are we maintaining Krishna's mission with Krishna's heart? Leadership always involves maintenance. A temple president maintains a temple. A zonal leader or GBC leader maintains relationships, maintains standards. A ministry leader may maintain teams and systems. A mentor maintains faith, morale. A parent in Krishna consciousness maintains a family in Krishna consciousness. And more broadly, any responsible human being maintains something. A family, a team, a classroom, a business, a community, a calling. So maintenance is not the problem. The problem is when maintenance becomes detached from care. The problem is when we preserve the structure but fail to care for the people within it. The temple can be maintained externally while devotees are becoming internally discouraged. A ministry can expand while people inside it feel quietly unseen. A project can be progressing while relationships are getting damaged. That's a heavy cost. Standards can be enforced while hearts are becoming bruised. Order can be preserved while trust slowly erodes away. We've been talking a lot about trust and all these concepts in the last couple of days, and we'll talk more about them in the class. The Bhagavatam warns us that visible maintenance is not the final measure. We're talking about the family man who maintains. Well, he was very successful. None of his family members are starving. But now the money he earned is the fare to go where? Down. That's right. Going down. So I was thinking of this verse. This is why I want to bring this very famous verse. Most people know this verse. Tatte Anukampam Sasamikshamaano Unjane Evatmakam Vritpakam. Girls know this one? Hidvagvapurbir Jiveta Yo Mukti Pade Sadaya. Yes. Who's speaking this verse? Lord Brahma. To who? To Krishna. He's praying to him. He's praised Lord Brahma. He's talking about the Lord's mercy. Tatte Anukampa. Anukampa means mercy. And one who waits for the Lord's compassionate mercy, even amidst difficulty, gets, right? The word Anukampa is very rich. It means more than just generic kindness. There's many other words, right? Kripa, Daya. Anukampa is a different flavor of mercy. Amazing. Kampa, see, it actually means deeply moved by another's condition. Kampa comes from what? Kampana. Kampana means trembling. When we're moved by something, especially when we're sad, we're angry, we're frustrated, or even when we're happy, when our emotions go beyond a certain level, then our body starts trembling. It could be good, it could be bad, but it's trembling. It's kampana. Anu means to follow. Like anukaran, anusaran, anugami. To following. So following in the wake of another's trembling. It means, you're moved by them. When you follow someone's trembling because we feel their pain, it's a resonance. When two strings are tuned to the same frequency, you pluck one, the other one starts vibrating. So it's a trembling. You feel a pain from a very intimate understanding of their situation. That is Anukampa. And then if we help them from that point, that's called Anukampa leadership. Oh no, I lost my slides again. I got it back, okay. So there, Anukampa refers to divine care. Now, Krishna does Anukampa for us. Why does Krishna have to tremble? My trembling is so insignificant. It's petty, actually, compared to, right, the bigger picture. It's nothing. Why does he need to feel? Why does he need to tremble? Rather, he should be more stoic. Be like me. Stop crying. No, he's not like that. He trembles with us. Just imagine a mother and say a 3-year-old child. A 3-year-old child is a lollipop, and lollipop falls down in the sand. The 3-year-old child starts crying. Ah. The mother also kind of pretends to cry. Oh, so sorry, it's okay. She almost crying almost. She gets in the same vibe. Although the mother doesn't feel this is a major disaster, but the child feels it's a major disaster. Similarly, Krishna comes down to our level. He vibrates with us to feel our pain. And then from that resonance, he gives a solution. He gives us care. You understand? Now, if a 25-year-old drops a lollipop and starts crying, that's silly. Right? Right? But the point to understand is, it doesn't matter how petty, down, insignificant. A person's pain is a person's pain. Can we resonate with them? That is called Anukampa. Why bring that here? Because if we as leaders represent Srila Prabhupada and Krishna in some small but real way, then our leadership cannot be merely administrative. It cannot be merely technical, managerial. It cannot be merely about preserving systems, getting results, keeping things moving. It must include some reflection of Anukampa. Not imitation of the Lord, not claiming an exalted position, but genuine care. A spiritual leader should develop a keen sense for what people are feeling, what they are carrying internally, what discouragement they may be hiding, and what nourishment they actually need. Otherwise, leadership becomes mechanical and out of touch. And we start seeing phenomena like quiet quitting. Have you heard of this quiet quitting? People still show up to work, but they hardly do because they're not enthusiastic like they used to before. They still come. They'll come for the arati, they'll come, but they're not jumping like they used to. And they're not as productive, like they've become 1/10 as productive they used to be just a few months ago. What's going on? It's called quiet quitting. Something's off. Anukampa leadership asks questions that mere administration does not ask. How is this person really doing? What are they carrying silently? How did my decision affect their heart? Did this correction that I did with them feel like care or only force of my authority? Did this person leave that interaction more nourished or more diminished? Is this person difficult or are they wounded? Is this person resistant or do they simply feel unheard? For our leaders here, this applies directly to devotees under our care. For guests, this principle applies in any setting where human beings are entrusted to us. Anukampa does not make us sentimental. It makes us perceptive. Because while we may not be guilty of the gross sinful maintenance described in this verse, we can still move in a subtler version of the same direction if we maintain systems while neglecting souls. Because that's a sin of neglect. It's also a sin. I mean, even, you remember Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, so many thousands of gallons of blood we spilled to get one devotee, and then now you're neglecting or you're harsh with them and now they're gone. That's a sin.
Can you say that again?
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he's very famously said that we spend thousands of gallons of blood just to get one person to be convinced of Krishna consciousness, to come into the movement. And then if we're neglecting, this keeps popping off. And then if we're neglectful and they leave because of our neglect, that's a sin. It's a big loss. It's a travesty. So the danger, what are the subtler sins? Offense, negligence, dismissiveness, harshness, coldness, misuse of trust, misuse of authority, lack of listening. We spent a lot of time listening yesterday. Spiritual insensitivity. These things may not look dramatic, but they shape consciousness. They shape our ethos. They shape our culture. They shape our sense of trust. And they shape our karma. We all have to deal with it. Now, to be balanced, of course, everything needs a balance. You can always swing too far in one direction, right? We should say something very clearly. Anukampa leadership does not mean impractical leadership. We do need pragmatism. We do need efficiency. We do need visible success. Prabhupada was very happy to see, temples come up, books going out. We do need projects to move. We do need budgets to be met. We do need standards to be upheld. We do need timely decisions. We do need leaders who can act, not only feel. That is also part of service. So the point of this class is not that leadership should become vague or soft or ineffective. The point is that leadership should remain strong without becoming careless with hearts. For us in spiritual leadership, that means these things cannot happen at the cost of deeply hurting devotees, damaging their faith, bruising their dignity, or repeatedly neglecting their spiritual well-being. How often as leaders do we call one-on-one, just like that, just for no reason at all, just as a friend. Sometimes we think we have so little time. But so many devotees said, whenever they met Prabhupada and they spoke with him, he spoke with them and it felt like he had all the time in the world for them. Yet he got so much done. He was just the embodiment always of just love and care. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. It literally does. You can feel it even now. You stand before Prabhupada here, give him a minute. You'll feel his prema, no doubt about it. I'm not saying we imitate him. I'm saying we learn, follow in his footsteps. Let us give the time of day to somebody. We learned so much yesterday on how to listen, right? Let our body language do some talking too. Put down what you're doing and when someone comes to talk to you. But also make time. Just call for 5 minutes to shoot the breeze. That 5-minute call to a person that you haven't spoken to, even though they're working under you, can mean all the difference. Wow, the person actually cares to see how I'm doing. So, this principle is what? That no mission, no cause, no institution, no efficiency should be built on avoidable injury to the human beings inside it. There are these factories where they have a big sign that says number of days since the last accident, somebody got hurt. And then if somebody got hurt, they've reset it to 0. And then it starts counting again. We can have something like number of days since the last person felt hurt under our care. If you keep resetting it to 0 every day, it's not good. You should feel some sense of pride. But see, these are metrics. These are measures. We have so many other measures, how many books went out, how much money we're collecting, how many temples and how many devotees are coming, how many guests are visiting, how many plates of prasadam. These are all great metrics. We need to keep them up, grow them for sure. But then the other metrics, how many days since the last person felt hurt because of something I said thoughtlessly? Can we count those? How many days since? Well, maybe I shouldn't waste time, or I shouldn't think I'm wasting time when I call some devotee just to see how they're doing. It makes a lot of difference. This is the line we have to guard carefully. It's a self-reflection that we have to do. Now, comes an honest question. We're going to go deeper. This is just the beginning. What about those overly sensitive devotees? What about chronic complainers? A long line of complainers. People the one who do action, they're very small. The one who is complaining line is long line. It's a cartoon like that. What about those who interpret every correction as mistreatment or abuse? What about people who resist discipline and then describe that resistance as being wounded? That exists too. You're all smiling because you know what I'm talking about. Of course, any guest hearing this may recognize the same issue. In ordinary life, you know what we're talking about. Not every grievance is equally weighty, right? Not every emotional reaction is proof of injustice, okay? So how do we discern? The discernment question. How do we discern where to draw the line between genuine hurt, right, and frivolous bickering or habitual complaint? Where do you draw the line? This is a very important part of Anukampa leadership. Because Anukampa is not gullibility or naivety. We know the human, the devotees who are more mature and have seen more of the world, they get a sense, okay? I don't want to be naive, but at the same time I don't. Also, all of us have different levels of naivety. In fact, those of us who are married, you'll see the Mataji will say, "Oh, no, Prabhuji, he's so gullible, he's so trusting to a fault," and he gets gullible, he's taken for a ride. I have to be there to protect him. Yes, where's that Mataji? Yes, Mataji. Some Mataji is here who told me the same. Now, I have the same problem. My wife tells me the same exact thing. She says, "Yeah, you come from a small town, so you don't know anything. I come from a big city, I know what people are like. You keep getting taken for a ride." It's true, we all have different levels of trusting, overly trusting. It's just part of our nature, who we are. We tend to trust, we're taken for a ride, we're fooled, we're robbed by some scam artist, and then we do it again. But Anukampa is not gullibility. Empathy is not the same as being manipulated by every emotional reaction. Okay? So we need mature discernment. Right? So I can suggest a simple framework to discern, to help us discern. First, is there a pattern? One complaint from one reactive person is different from repeated similar concerns coming from multiple sincere people across time. Patterns matter. If one leader is getting the same complaint from 7, 8 different people over 2 years, or 20 different people, and you say, they all complain, no, something is wrong there. Okay? This temple is not full of 20 scammers and one pure leader, okay? I refuse to hear that. We have to acknowledge that. This is a framework. Second, what was the context? Was this necessary correction, or was it avoidable harshness? Was firmness required, or was the tone excessive? I could be just giving a review of someone's service. Sit down. And just, you did this service very bad, this was very bad, awful. Break the heart, that person doesn't come back again. Was it necessary? That person is sincere, try to serve. Maybe they're weak in certain ways. Can you find a way to help them improve? But that person didn't come back for years. They'll be coaxed back. These are actual things I've seen. Was it necessary to be that heavy? Sometimes we need to give sandwiches where you really focus on the good. If you're going to give a correction, at least first highlight the positive aspects of that person's contribution. Then give the correction in a very gentle way. Then again cap it off with another end of the sandwich. Which by the way, you also did the other things really nice. We have to do it. We learned that also I'm just kind of highlighting some of the things we learned in the class. Third, what was the fruit? Did the interaction ultimately strengthen trust, even if it was uncomfortable? Or did it produce fear, withdrawal, silence, discouragement? We have to evaluate. Fourth, was the person merely offended or actually uncared for? Like they just felt offended or genuinely uncared for? Sometimes false ego gets hurt, that happens. But sometimes a person really felt neglected, steamrolled, embarrassed, not heard. Those are not the same thing, felt embarrassed, felt offended, or genuinely hurt. Can we think a little deeper? Fifth, Was there an effort to listen? This is again another thing in the class. Did you actually give them, the person, the time of day to hear? You put down your stuff. Anukampa leadership means I want to resonate with you. I want to feel what you're feeling. Tell me more, and go on. If I hear you correctly, this is Anukampa leadership. You don't give suggestions right away, solutions right away. If I hear you correctly, if this is your feeling. See, this is Anukampa leadership means I want to understand what you're feeling. So we confirm them, we acknowledge their words without making any judgment. That's important. Anukampa leadership hears before labeling someone difficult or emotional or negative. Oh, it's just a difficult person, And sixth, did we make an attempt to pray to the Lord, especially in particularly difficult cases? Like, take a moment, my Lord. I really need some guidance. I'm not able to discern right now. That's okay. Prabhupada asks us to pray all the time. So not every hurt feeling proves injustice, but repeated disregard of hurt feelings often points to a failure in leadership. This is an important distinction. Then the verse talks about this notion of bhuta droha, verse number 31. Bhuta droha yad bhratam. What is it? One maintained oneself by causing harm to other living entities. Bhuta means living entities. Droha means betray them. Now in leadership, bhuta droha may not usually mean, of course, gross physical violence. Try not to do that. But it may mean subtler forms of harm. Overburdening dependable devotees until they quietly burn out. It may mean failing to notice when someone is drying up spiritually, because that's important. You want to keep them soaking with the nectar. It may mean failing to notice when someone is, treating someone's concern as an inconvenience. That's the bhuta droha. It means dismissing someone's pain because the service must go on, especially if they're bringing it up. It means using devotees for their utility while neglecting their hearts, right? Projects over people. We do that instead of people over projects. And worst of all, if it creates a pattern, it may mean creating a culture where people are afraid to speak honestly upward. If I speak something, my service will be gone, so better I just keep quiet. Many of our devotees who come to as congregation members especially, they don't come for a salary. They come for service. That's their salary. And they're afraid that if I say something, my salary will be gone. My service will be gone. Oh, gosh. Okay. Sometimes the leader thinks, I'm not harming anyone, I'm just being practical. But if people under our care consistently feel unseen, unheard, pressured, or secondary, then something is already going wrong. From reading Prabhupada's many leelas, we hear nobody felt that. It's quite opposite. Everything about Prabhupada is encouraging, caring, loving, perfectly aligned with time, place, circumstance. He wasn't taken for a ride by people who are manipulators either. He see right through it. You see. So the danger that leadership can rationalize this very easily. We don't have time for this right now. We have to do the Rath Yatra. People need to be stronger. This is just how service is. Service means you give. That's it. We need results. We need order. We need to move. Jaldi, chap. That may sound practical, but Anukampa asks, at what cost to the person and what cost to the soul? Now sometimes there's chap, but everybody knows it's coming from a place of love. That's fine. It's okay. In fact, it's fun sometimes to kind of, buckle up. But they have to know it comes from a place of love. You have to be able to have a foundation of love so that you can justify that chap, right? Then another line in the verse, Eka prapadyate dhvantam. This is heavy. Lord Kapila says, he goes alone into the darkness. Who is that? Yeah, the sinner. That's right. This should make every leader pause. In life, a leader may be surrounded by teams, surrounded by supporters and staff and boards and disciples and donors and admirers and well-wishers. But at death, one goes alone. Eka prapadyate dvantam. That's the line in that verse 31. Not with title, not with role, not with reputation, not with narrative, not with justification. One goes with one's consciousness. Even a guest can appreciate the force of this meditation. In the end, we answer not by our image, but by what we became. Because remember, we are always becoming something based on what we're doing today. So every leader should sometimes ask, what am I carrying? Am I carrying service offered with compassion, like Prabhupada did? Or am I carrying the subtle weight of people I failed to truly hear? Am I carrying the blessing of souls that I helped to nourish? Or am I carrying the reactions of people I managed without deeply caring for them? Repeated indifference is not small. Repeated harshness is not small. Repeated neglect is not small. And repeated failure to enter into another struggle is not small. These things shape what we ourselves become. And then there's a striking phrase in the verse, Kushaletara patheya. The sinful acquisition becomes the passage money. Passage money for the journey to the next place. In our context, we can reflect on this more subtly. What if the very habits that makes us externally effective become inward burdens? What if the culture of pressure we created, the dismissiveness we normalized, the pain we failed to notice, the harshness we justified as strength, become part of what burdens our consciousness? That is worth reflecting on deeply. So let's remember this word Anukampa. It means to tremble along with another, in the wake of their heartfelt feelings, in resonance. First, maintenance is not enough. We must not only maintain structures, we must care for people in a genuine, deep way. And for us in devotional life is a care for souls. Second, pragmatism, efficiency, visible success are necessary, but they become spiritually dangerous when pursued at the cost of deeply hurting devotees. More broadly, deeply hurting people entrusted to us. Third, not every complaint is valid. We know that. Leaders do need discernment. Don't get carried away. Don't get fooled. Okay? But repeated pain, recurring patterns, and the fruit of a leadership has to be examined carefully and honestly. Fourth, these subtle harms that we do matter. They matter. They're not nothing. Offense, negligence, indifference, dismissiveness, chronic harshness, they're not trivial. We can't say, that's just who I am. That's just the way I am. Sorry, that's not acceptable. Fifth, leadership means heightened accountability. The more people, and especially the more souls entrusted to us, the more carefully we must walk. And finally, Anukampa is not optional for those representing Srila Prabhupada's mission. It's part of faithful leadership itself. So let us pray, not merely to become effective leaders, but to become leaders whose hearts remain soft, alert, perceptive, and moved by the needs of others. Let us pray. My dear Lord, please do not let me maintain your mission while neglecting your people. Please do not let me become efficient but unfeeling, strong but harsh, responsible but spiritually numb. Let me represent Srila Prabhupada with genuine care. Let me notice the struggles of devotees. Let me hear their pains. Let me honor the sincere desires of spiritual life. Let me never sacrifice persons for the sake of systems. And let me lead in a way that protects not only structures, but souls. Then these verses, the 2 verses we read today, they become not only a warning, but a guide. A guide away from spiritual danger. A guide toward honest leadership. A guide toward Anukampa. Thank you very much for your valuable time and your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I think we have a few minutes for questions. Nityananda Prabhu back there, his hand is up.
Thank you so much for your insightful class. So many incredible points. I have a bunch of questions, but I'm just going to ask one. And that question would be that the structure that we have that was given to us by Prabhupada requires a leader to be Prabhupada. Prabhupada-like. So we can see that that's really unrealistic in our movement and our experience. So somebody may be very wonderful organizer, efficient in so many things, keeping track of every penny and having projects go on very efficiently, but they lack that emphatic necessity to deal with devotees and making people feel part of a family, unit, or community, whatever you want to say. So, is it really possible, or should I say, it's not really, doesn't seem very practical to keep pushing this, that everyone should become like that, although I understand the teachings is that we all should become pure devotee supermen, superwomen. But practically it's not working. So why don't we change our approach to a more team approach? Somebody's strengths can be balanced by, somebody's weakness can be balanced by somebody's strength, having a team approach. I think there are temples in our movement that have team approaches to leadership. As long as we stick with this one, I'm asking, if we just stick to this one model where one person has to be everybody's everything, aren't we doomed to continual failure of that attempt?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Nityananda Prabhu. Great question. Prabhupada cannot be imitated. However, Prabhupada did famously say, now all of you become exactly like me. Have you heard of that? You heard that, right? Whoa, what? Does that mean that we demand that we go in a Rolls Royce? No. Exactly like me means, this is what we're trying to see, is what are the qualities we can follow and develop. Your point is well taken about one person. And that Prabhupada took that point as well. In fact, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur took that point as well. Prior to ISKCON, and we discussed this at depth yesterday, the most Vaishnava or any religious organizations are always headed by one Acharya. This is the first time, actually Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted that. He wanted to have a GBC, but he now pulled it off. Somehow that didn't work out. But Prabhupada made sure it happened. So he went with a team approach, like you're saying. If he had kept it one Acharya, it would have been a problem. Can you imagine? Any one Acharya, who knows, right? So he knew the flaws of that. He knew the brilliance of the GBC. And so he did implement the team approach, you see. And that's also not flawless, by the way. Right? However, we're still one movement for the most part. We haven't splintered into 15 different organizations of equal size. We're still pretty much one large organization. That is the brilliance of Prabhupada's GBC vision. So that's a testament, I'm telling you. And then you mentioned it's not it's not possible for one person to have these qualities, but it's incumbent on the leader. Even if you're a Bhakti Vriksha leader where you have 3 families coming, you need to be that. You need to be some level of, we don't need to be Superman like Prabhupada. There's a nice beautiful prayer. The little ghee lamp prays to the sun. My dear Lord, you are the sun. When you come up, the whole place lights up. But please bless me so that in my little corner of the world, I can light up my little corner and be the ghee lamp. We don't have to be the sun, but at least we have to be the ghee lamp. That's the point. That sometimes what happens, we elevate the requirements so much that nobody can do it. Nobody's qualified to do it. But it's almost like it's a straw man. We build something that just can't be done. The same thing the Ritviks are saying, for example. Nobody can be guru. That's the same problem. Only Prabhupada can be guru. So then if you extend that, only Prabhupada can be a manager. Nobody's really, unless you do a whole team, or even guruship, you shouldn't really have, So then, it's like saying Prabhupada didn't empower anybody to be a good leader. Prabhupada didn't empower anybody. He was so weak in empowering that he couldn't even give systems and guidance that he couldn't produce one good guru. It's an offense to Prabhupada. In one sense, if you take it that way. But we have to be very careful and be sure that, no, I am just a ghee lamp. And always bow down to the sun. We can never be Prabhupada, but we can follow in his footsteps. We can never pay him back. We can pay it forward. And we can also help. This whole thing's happening right now, this leadership conference. It's his teamwork. These are leaders. None of the leaders feel they are the leader of this Northeast zone here, that we own this whole thing. Nobody. But we're all in charge of little corners of the dark spaces in North America where we have to now take our ghee lamp and shine as bright as we can, being inspired by the sun, with Srila Prabhupada. So this is ongoing. Structures, sometimes some temples do better with teams. Some temples don't do better with teams, actually. And some temples have tried both and saw that when you had 4 people in charge, it actually fell apart. We have to bring back the other guy again. And this is just theoretical. That happens. So, yes, some temples do well with teams, I agree. Some of the very larger ones, perhaps, some of the more complex ones. And some of them have carried on for decades with a council of 5 presidents or something. It works really well. And some temples... So we have to do a little bit of that, try and see what works. But ultimately, if you have 5 rascals who are just insensitive, then again, it's the same problem. You just multiply it by 5, So we have to... The problem is not the structure. The problem is the rascaldom that we have to root out from our hearts. Nityarita Prabhu. I hope I didn't oversimplify. I didn't want to... I hope that helps, that perspective. It's not a simple question to answer. Hare Krishna. Yes, Naveen Krishna. There's a question. There's a question right in front over here, Naveen Krishna. And we do have to end quickly because 10 to 10 we have to be in the piano room.
Maybe it's a comment, it's not a question.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Lord. Really appreciate it.
We're trying it on, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's really insightful course. This is also very prevalent in corporate world. Anukampa, what is saying devotee. This is a servant leadership is also coming. The feel somebody is playing.
Yeah, the emotional intelligence they call it. EQ. Yeah.
Yes, EQ is also coming. And where work is also very prevalent. The leaders coming and making the pancakes for themselves. And then walking with their feet.
Sure.
The level.
Yeah.
So many things are happening.
Yeah.
So this is something we can adopt as we move on. But also I can relate this is something Mahabharata, relation between Karna and then Duryodhana versus Vidura and Dhritarashtra. Same principles.
louder for a moment.
Yeah, you have to talk. He's saying this is similar to the analogies of Karna and Duryodhana. That's an example of a corrupted friendship. And then the other friendship is Vidura and Dhritarashtra, which is Dhritarashtra is also kind of a corrupted guy, but Vidura gave him good advice and helped him out toward the end of life and so on.